January 1978 saw the release of Love Is Like Oxygen, a song for which Andy Scott received an Ivor Novello nomination. The avant-garde style of the song contrasts to the sweet sound of the past.
I got it all. I've heard that pride always comes before a fall. There's a rumor going round the town that you don't want me around. I can't shake off my city blues. Everywhere I turn I lose.
The Love Is Like Oxygen thing, the whole thing surrounding it, we had basically been to the Chateau in France to record the album. We come back to London to do some finishings, and there was a song that we'd been tinkering with. My old sound engineer, a guy called Trevor, had been tinkering with this thing on a piano, and I'd been putting some guitar stuff to it. And I said to him, I think I can do something with this, you know. So I recorded me and him just playing the various bits of Love Is Like Oxygen, of which there were more parts than this. So it needed some editing down, because he was being a little bit Rachmaninoff with what he wanted to, you know, it's like a bit of a symphony going on in his head, you know. And I was saying, well, that bit, and that bit, those are the three main character bits. And we got a producer arranger involved, a guy called Jeff Westley, who I don't think Mick and Steve took to very well. He was a bit austere and, you know, aloof, you know, knew his onions and knew his classical composition, you know, spacings, and, you know, the way you can play an A in the bass but have a B flat up here, you know, something like that, something very obscure, you know. But I liked his ideas a lot, and when we started to, someone heard this basis of Love Is Like Oxygen, and the other guys, they probably didn't like that I'd got Jeff Westley involved to do an arrangement for Love Is Like Oxygen. This guy has got a classically trained mind, so he's putting it in a classical environment, not in a rock band environment, where the bass follows the notes of the chords. So it's all over the place. So musically, we're already into a different area than we've ever been before. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. And I'd virtually got the song finished in my head by the time we'd done the backing track. And we had a weekend off. And I went home, and on the Monday when I came back, I played them Love Is Like Oxygen with all the lyrics and all the melody and all the words. And they were like, wow. So I then basically just started to transfer what I'd done at home onto the multi-track, because there was no point in, you know, re-recording all of it. We just stuck some of it across. Then, but Brian had to sing something, so the verses were possible. Somebody got him in early one morning, and he went in there, and within 2 or 3 takes, he'd done the verses of Love Is Like Oxygen. It was absolutely brilliant. When you've got a song like Love Is Like Oxygen that breaks into the top 10 in every country virtually in the world, you know you've got a big hit, you know, and that's what happened with Fox on the Run, and that's what happened with Love Is Like Oxygen.
I came up with Love Is Like Oxygen, which was a great record. And I thought to myself, well, you know, maybe I was wrong, and maybe they can move on from there. But they didn't. And of course it was after that point that the band really started to get into chaos, and you know, Brian had to leave and whatever.
Love Is Like Oxygen peaked in the charts at number 9 and gave the band hope of rekindling their previous success. However, such were Brian's alcohol problems that he began to find it increasingly difficult to fulfill his role as lead singer of the band.
Once the lead singer starts to be unreliable and show up drunk and whatever, and he really, I was terribly fond of Brian. I liked him very, very much as a person. But the drink did get a hold of him. Brian was a highly insecure man. and in a way, that was part of his appeal as a person, because he was vulnerable. He was a really nice guy, and that was part of his appeal. But the drink got a hold of that. I mean, part of sweet folklore is that he was taken into hospital one night and had something like 9 cardiac arrests and survived. He's a pretty strong guy. Of course, that contributed a huge amount. And bit by bit, he became a shadow of the guy that he was. So the band couldn't have gone on with him, ultimately, anyway.
Even though we were aware that things weren't right, you still couldn't tell us that the best thing that could happen is that Brian should leave the band. We were still not at that stage until, I guess, it had got to that point where more and more Steve and myself were singing on Sweet albums, because he never showed up at the studio, or when he did, he was a bit worse for wear from either the night before or what had happened this lunchtime. And the frustrations that bind within, you're realizing that you're not getting the best out of everything because he's the lead singer and it should be his voice on this particular track. For example, on Love Is Like Oxygen, I sung the whole, all the parts in the chorus, because it was quicker and easier for me to just do it. Brian sang the verse. It's what happens in recording. As I said, it's what you hear on records. It's not always the person that you think it is that's singing all the parts, because we were all very malleable and interchangeable with our vocal ranges. I think that you do yourself no favours when in front of the management team and in front of 20,000 people in Alabama, you go on stage absolutely wrecked and you can't even start the first song. And this is what happened to Brian. And our manager pulled him off the stage, and we finished the set as a 3-piece band, which we had done a couple of times previously. I think that was the beginning of the end for everybody, where unless this can be fixed now, he has to go. There was we pulled out a few American dates, which I wasn't pleased about, because it was felt that we needed to get ourselves back together, write some new material and see how it was going to work out with Brian. It was all kind of coming to a head where I'd basically said, well, I remember me and Steve were basically at that point of he must go, and I understood Mick's stand 100%. We've been together this long, we can work this out. And I said, well, I can't work it out with him. Somebody else has to do it. And we even tried different people going in the studio to record his voice, not me. And it still wasn't, wasn't getting there. And the best decision was that this is the time where there are things that you can do, but not with us. And, well, I was hoping it wasn't going to get too nasty, but, it did for a moment or two. But I think he probably saw the, I've since spoken to his then wife, Marilyn, and she's, she said to me that at that time, it was extremely difficult to get a full focus on what was going on. But now you've had time to think about it and look back at it. That was the only decision that could be made. It was probably not the right decision, because we had 3 more albums in us. It was never going to be quite the same once Brian had gone. It was better musically, and it was better from a band point of view, but we were never going to have the same impact again, because we were just a damn good band rather than a band with oddball characters here and there all doing their, all we'd done is we'd knuckled ourselves down into becoming a good hard-working rock band, rather than the band that's got the the guy who's going to hit the press every other week.
Brian Connolly officially left the band in February 1979. The band continued as a 3-piece, sharing the vocals, but they were never to enjoy the same amount of success as they had previously. In 1982, following the release of 3 unsuccessful albums, Level-Headed, Cut Above the Rest and Identity Crisis, the suite officially split. During the 80s and 90s, Brian Connolly toured extensively with various lineups. On the 9th of February 1997, Brian Connolly tragically passed away at the age of 52 from a suspected stroke and heart attack. Mick Tucker sadly lost his long fight against leukemia on Valentine's Day 2002, age 54. Andy Scott still tours today with his band AS Sweet. And Steve Priest now lives in America.
This is a band that were successful on a worldwide basis. They had hits everywhere, including America, where a lot of acts around that time didn't. And they were massively successful. And I think made 1 or 2 records that were landmark records. And I remember when Brian died and they did a Top of the Pops 2 special on him, and Johnny Walker called him the godfather of glam. And in a way, that in itself says how much of an impact they had. 5 words to describe Sweet. Talented, energetic, excessive, very difficult.
Arrogant would be one. Single-minded would be another. Definitely talented. Sometimes difficult. But when there was women around, always affable.